gunshots karibu 10 na askari wenzenu.
Ndio tutangua wengine wengi. Enda chukua wengine. Sawa. Kutoka.
Asiutaua wengine wengi. Na si ndio nafanywa na ndosha theaters na madaktari nitawatibu aje na ni wenzenu. Aje. Na nilipuli hadi anesthesia kilipukia watu ndafanya nini na mnatibiwa pia nini? Na sibakui. Sad, just bad. Kuna wagonjwa 10 wote wanakufia hapa tu ambulance hizi fika.
In mid-2024, Kenya's streets trembled under the weight of youth unrest. Gen Z wasn't just tweeting hashtags, they were marching, shouting, rising against a finance bill that felt like a nail in the coffin of their already uncertain future. Nairobi boiled with anger. Protest signs filled the skies. The air was electric with defiance. But after the last chants faded, a silence crept in. It wasn't the silence of peace. It was something colder, heavier. People began to disappear. At first, it was subtle. A friend missed a call, a cousin stopped showing up at family dinners, a co-worker stopped coming to work. The absent were brushed off until they became too much to ignore, especially the women. Young, vibrant, loud, and the same faces that had led the chants were now just gone. No explanations, no bodies, no headlines, just whispers. Whispers that grew into fear. If you are into deep dives into true crime, mysteries, and untold stories from the past, support the channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, sharing with your crew, and leaving a comment below on a case you think we should cover. This is Dark Echoes, where silence meets the truth. Then it happened. On the outskirts of Nairobi, someone stumbled upon a sack in a quarry. Inside was a woman's body, decomposed, mutilated, dumped like garbage. It was a gruesome find, but what followed was even worse. In the days that followed, authorities pulled out 41 more bodies from the same quarry, 42 women in total. Some of them bore signs of torture, others were too decomposed to identify. The scene was hellish, like something out of a crime documentary, except this time, it was horrifyingly real and close to home. The country was stunned. Question exploded overnight. Who were these women? Were they connected? Were these the missing protesters, victims of some underground trafficking ring? Or were they just random casualties of a serial killer who had somehow gone unnoticed for over a year? The silence from officials was deafening. Answers were vague. Forensics was slow. And as the public waited for clarity, conspiracy theories filled the void. Some of the bodies matched recent missing persons reports. Others didn't. There was a talk of cover-up, of government-sanctioned killings, of silencing the loudest voices from the protests. The timing was too precise. The numbers too high. The locations too calculated. It didn't feel like the work of one man. It felt like a message. And then, like something out of a script, the police gave the public a suspect, Collins Jumaisi Khalusha. Young, meek, ordinary. The kind of guy you wouldn't notice in a crowd. Suddenly, his face was everywhere. The news called him a serial killer. They said he killed his wife, then lured women in through charm before ending their lives and dumping their bodies like trash. The public was supposed to accept it. Case closed. Killer found. But something didn't sit right. Not with me, not with others who've seen real crime stories play out. Because this wasn't just about one man. This was about timing, method, motive. This was about power. And power doesn't dump bodies, it buries them for good. The quarry didn't look like a killing ground. It looked like a mass grave used to get rid of evidence quickly and quietly. So the question remains, were these the actions of an unhinged man? Or was Collins just a name to throw to the wolves while the real predator watched from a safe distance? Something was off, deeply off. And the more I looked, the more I realized this was just a murder case. This was a message wrapped in fear and sealed in silence. The arrest came like lightning, sudden, shocking, and suspiciously clean. Barely a week after the discovery of 42 decomposing bodies in the quarry, the police paraded a suspect, Collins Jumaisi Khalusha, a name no one knew yesterday, a face that didn't scream killer, but was now etched into the public psyche as Kenya's newest villain. The media called him a serial predator. The headlines were sensational. Quarry killer nabbed, mind behind 42 murders arrested. But the moment I saw him, I felt something twist in my gut. Because Collins didn't look like a man haunted by 42 ghosts. He looked lost, disoriented, disturbed, like he was still trying to figure out what room he was in, let alone why the entire country had just turned him into the devil. They said he killed his first wife, that it was a domestic issue gone wrong. But from there, the narrative shifted dramatically. He didn't just stop at one. No, they said he went on a year-long spree, luring women, killing them, dismembering their bodies, wrapping them in sacks, driving them to the quarry and dumping them. Alone, no accomplice, no clear timeline, no motive that made sense. It was too neat, too packaged, like a puzzle already solved before the pieces were even laid out. And still the public bought it. After all, we needed someone to blame. 42 bodies don't just vanish and reappear in a quarry without consequences. The country wanted blood. The government needed a scapegoat. And Collins, he was convenient. Young, poor, unconnected, a man who couldn't afford a lawyer, let alone real defense. He was the perfect fall guy. But even the details didn't add up. According to the initial report, Collins confessed without legal representation. He suddenly admitted to all the 42 murders, described the scenes, the methods, the victims. But how does someone confess to crime they couldn't possibly have committed alone? Where were the vehicles, the transport records, the evidence linking him to every single body? Were there witnesses, cameras, forensics? Nothing. Instead, we got a confession under murky circumstances and a shaky narrative pushed by tired detectives and overwhelmed news anchors. The press ran wild, digging into his past, desperate to paint him as a hidden monster. But nothing stood out. No violent history, no obsession with murder, no red flags. He wasn't the kind of man who blends into the shadows. He was the shadow. Too normal to notice, too small to matter, until someone needed a name. And maybe that's exactly why they chose him. I kept wondering, if this man truly committed all these murders, why didn't he run? Why didn't he hide? Why was there no panic, no cleanup, no pattern of escalation or control traits you always find with real serial killers? It was like he was plucked from the street, slapped the label, and thrown into the furnace of public outrage. But then, something even stranger happened. He disappeared, right under police watch. 8 prison guards on shift. No struggles, no alarm, no camera footage. One day, he was in custody, the next, poof, gone. And not a single soul in law enforcement had answers. That's when I knew this wasn't about justice. This was about silence. And someone wanted it to stay that way. Collins Jumaisi didn't escape like a man running from guilt. He disappeared like a man erased. One minute, he was in remand custody, unguarded in name, but under heavy surveillance after being labeled one of Kenya's most dangerous men. 8 prison officers were reportedly on duty that night. No one saw a thing. Not a single camera picked up a movement. No tunnel, no fight, no signs of resistance. Just a cold, clean, vanishing act. Poof. And just like that, the man at the center of one of the country's darkest murder cases was gone. No man walks out of the fortified prisons without help. This wasn't a slip-up. This was surgical, intentional. If Collins was the killer, wouldn't they want him locked away forever, paraded as the face of justice, a trophy kill for the state? But instead, it was silence again, deafening silence. One day, headlines screamed his name. The next, they moved on. No updates, no urgency. It was as if the justice system was relieved he vanished. And that's where it hit me. Maybe Collins wasn't a monster. Maybe he was a message, one written in flesh and fear, and just as quickly burned before anyone could read it. Because let's think practically. 42 bodies over 1 year. different backgrounds, different locations, all dumped at the same sites. That's not just a killing spree, that's a coordinated operation. And this meek, confused man with no resources, no history of violence, no psychological profile that fits a serial killer, he managed that. He drove them, killed them, disposed of them alone. And not once did he make a mistake. Not one witness, not one survivor. Or was he simply the perfect target? Poor, unimportant, isolated, the kind of man no one would protect, the kind of man who would confess under pressure, the kind of man who would take the fall while the serial killer shook hands in quiet rooms. Because here's the terrifying part. We never ask the real questions. Who are these women really? What did they know? Why now? Right after national protests that humiliated the government. And who stood to gain from the silence? Collins vanished, yes. But maybe not to freedom. Maybe he was disappeared by the same people who wanted him to take the blame. The same people who buried 42 lives in forgotten quarry. The same people who even now remains untouchable, unspoken, unnamed. That's not a serial killer, that's a system. And the scariest monsters, they don't stalk you from the alleyways. They sit behind the desks and arrest whoever they want.